The Doomer Bloomer podcast is a community for the resurrection of good ideas. We profile the hero's journey in weekly episodes and teach people about the 10 pillars framework for success in life, business, and relationships. Our mission is to find and help all Doomer Bloomers with mental health issues, poverty mindset, lack of resources, and those left behind in this world. Tune in weekly with Will S. and occasionally John Wynn as we have deep conversations with guests about the hero's journey, clown world order, and the resurrection of good ideas. To help support our community, go to www.thedoomerbloomerpodcast.com/support to become a member today. And remember, we are the cure for COVID-19.
Hi, this is Mike Messier. I'm the guest host of the Doomer Bloomer podcast. Producer William Sommer, a great friend of mine, has trusted me to interview our guest, Tom Kereszti. Tom, did I say your name right? Did I nail it, buddy?
You nailed it. You got it right. Perfect. You can be. You can now be a native Hungarian.
Tom, is it a Hungarian name? Is that your ethnicity?
Yeah. I'm originally Hungarian. I was born in Budapest, and yeah, that's I came to the U.S. when I was about 12.
I watched a Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I watched a really cool interview on your website, which is leadershipdisciples.com. That's the first word is leadership, LEADERSHIP, disciples, DISCIPLES.com. And it's a really nice laid out website. And then I believe it's, I think I was just in the news on the subheading up at the top. I believe there was an interview you did in San Diego, which is where you're currently living. Is that all correct?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, thanks for reminding me, because there's probably about 24 podcasts that I need to upload on that website. Because right now, if you go to my LinkedIn profile on under my last name Kereszti, KERESZTI, you'll find lots of Zoom videos or just audio podcasts that I've done over the last 3 or 4 months, and I've just been I need to get a little fire under my butt and get all those to my website, because that's that's that way everything's in one place.
Yeah, it's part of it.
Yeah.
This was at San Diego Christian College. It's a nice interview that you're doing at the college, and I think one of the more interesting things you say, and we'll go into the deep dive with your biography, but just to give a quick life lesson as we get started, I believe you said something to the effect of people get hired for what they know and they get fired for who they are. And I thought that was pretty riveting. Can you speak more on that? Did I get that correct? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. And especially for, the graduating class, especially when you come out of college, everybody tends to focus, and really the whole thing is set up that way. Your resume is set up that way. It's about, your accomplishments, what you did, what kind of grades, point average you had in school, what you achieved. Then even if you go in later in life, you start again listing job accomplishments. I was in such and such a job, and I increased sales by 5%, or I saved 2% of profit or whatever. But they're always key performance indicators, and they tend to be very much about things you do versus who you are. And then you get into an environment, and what happens is all of a sudden you can't get along with folks. All of a sudden you alienate people, you tick people off, you become dictatorial, and those are the measures, which are the human qualities, and those are the things that get you fired. You don't get fired because you missed the KPI. You get fired because you're an idiot, and you're mistreating people or mistreating customers, or can't really lead people um, to take over and kind of be on the same team and get objectives accomplished because you can't get a team to work together. So those are all human qualities, and those are the things that get you fired. I remember back in this was I'm dating myself, but back in the mid '80s, I worked for a company called Colgate Palmolive Company, and at that time they had a form that everybody had to use for HR evaluation. So HR had this form. It was about a 5-page or 6-page form. It was like a fold out, and whenever people got evaluated, the bosses had to use that, and everybody, both you and the guy that evaluated you, had to sign off on that. And I think the first page was like, okay, who you are, your age, sex, all that stuff, what your job title, position is. And then there was one page devoted to your job skill sets, right? So basically, are you a good accountant, and some examples of why you're a good accountant, or if you're a good sales guy and some examples of why you're a good sales guy. And then the remaining 4 pages were, does he take self initiative? How does he get along with people?
Right.
Those are all people skill sets. So it kind of amused me to say, look, only one page is your technical skill sets, and 4 pages is about who you are as an individual, right? What gets you up in the morning, what
Right.
motivates you, how do you get along with people, and those are the human skill sets. So that's what I think I was referring to then in that interview.
Are those skill sets how to get along with people, how someone gets along with people, how they treat people, how they communicate? Are those sometimes referred to as soft skills? Do I have that right, Tom?
Uh, I don't know. I don't think they're soft skills. I think they're critical skills. If you take,
No, I'm just saying
if
that the. Go ahead.
yeah, you could say soft skills. Some people, now there's a term. I think they call it uh, emotional intelligence is another word that
Right.
people use for it. So and they're all basically people skills. And you may call them soft skills, but I think they're critical.
Well, I think they're critical too. My point is that the term soft skills, I think, has been used in the last several years, and if you think soft in terms of weak, that's not accurate. It's more like hard to measure skills, skills that can't be measured until someone actually works there. You know what I mean? Until someone is actually in the business environment or the company environment, it's hard to put those skills on a piece of paper or in a 20-minute interview with human resources. But once someone's on the job and you see week after week, month after month, how are they getting along at the water cooler and in the conference room and stuff like that? That's when those things become evident, right?
Yeah, I think there's a really easy way to measure it. Look, if you're successful in your job, then you probably have good soft skills, right?
Right.
So if your performance is lacking, then look, there's one is too small of a number to achieve greatness. So I don't care if you're a team leader, if you're a CEO of a company, or you're just on a team as a team member, right? Still, you're going to achieve things because of your interaction with other people. It's not because of something you did yourself, right? It's your interactions with other people. So it's in a way it's easier to measure because if your team is performing, that means you probably have good soft skills. If you're performing well in your job and you're on a team, that also means you probably have good soft skills. So if the team is lacking, then probably the soft skills are lacking as well. I remember when I was working for this company out of the UK, Reckitt Benckiser, and I was a general manager for, and Reckitt Benckiser was a very, very leading marketing company. So they had tended, and most fast consumers, consumer goods companies tend to elevate marketing geniuses, right? So that was the same thing. They had
Right.
a lot of leaders in that company, general managers who had a very strong marketing skill set. And I didn't have a strong marketing skill set. I had a very good generalist skill set. And I remember the CEO, Bart Beck, said, it's just, I don't know what it is. Tom's not a great marketer, but he just gets everything done, right? And he said, I can't really put my finger on it. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but things get done. And literally because of those soft skills, as a general manager of that company, I switched it from losing, about $4 million into in less than 3 years. In about 2.5 years, they were already making 2.5 million. So that was a 6 million swing. And it wasn't because I was a marketing genius. It was just, I was a good leader, and I was able to get the best out of the team that was in that company. So I don't know for
I
what it's
used to
worth.
have I think it's worth a lot. I used to have an expression, Tom, that it's not what you do for people, it's how you make people feel about themselves that tends to matter, you know. If you can make people feel like they're valued or they're important or they're intelligent. Um, I work with actors a lot. If you make them feel like they're a great actor, they'll give you a great performance. If you browbeat them or come down on them, they're going to respond accordingly. And a lot of life is how you treat yourself and how you treat others. You have a great book that I want to mention, and I didn't. My apologies, I didn't get into your bio because I wanted to get to one of those life lessons right away. But let's start with the book, C-Suite and Beyond. You have a roadmap to success. Have you ever wondered what separates you from the most successful business leaders in the world? Have you ever found yourself wanting to know their secrets so that you can experience even greater levels of success in your own life? Well, here it is. Tom Kereszti, in his new book, C Suite and Beyond, will break down what traits and experiences those at the highest level of an organization are looking for in individuals who wish to make the climb upward. He will share the 4 keys of his crucial leadership lessons from his years on the front lines of international operations. In addition, the book is filled with stories of leaders who have successfully led teams, inspirational quotes, biblical lessons, and companies who have gotten it right. If you are a C-level executive or just aspiring to be one, this book will empower you to become a better leader. So I think that's great. And the book's available on Amazon. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Yeah, you'll find it. You just Google it and you'll find it in a couple of Walmart. Some people don't like Amazon, so there's other choices out there as well. But for sure, you can buy it on Amazon. Just let me spend just 30 seconds. Something you said right before you started this, introduction. Something about said how you make people feel um, is extremely important, and it just reminded me of the story that I just shared with you, where I took this company and I flipped it about 4 million from negative 4 million to positive 2.5 million, and after 2.5 years in the expat world, which is the international executives, they bring you in to make a change, and you usually have about 2 to 3 years to make that change. So if you're not successful, you get fired in less than 3 years. If you are successful, then they want you to move on to bigger and better and do it again in a different part of the world with a bigger organization. And I was leaving, and my replacement was coming in, and so we had a farewell party for me and an introductory party to the next guy. And um, in my farewell speech, my CFO got up and thanked me. And what she said, which I'll never forget, it moved my heart. She goes, Tom, you believed in us, but more importantly, you made us believe in ourselves.
Right.
And that was so key and so heartwarming for me that I was able to accomplish that. And that was a nicer compliment than anybody else could say to me. That was just wonderful.
Well, it makes you think of the great sports coaches, like the Vince Lombardis and the Joe Gibbs and all these mentors. Phil Jackson, who always had these superstar athletes, but he had to balance their egos. And
Yeah,
but even with people that don't have egos like that, a lot of times, what's the missing ingredient from someone being successful is confidence, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Your book, for those that aren't familiar with the term C-suite, can you expand upon that? I mean, that's a term that I know a lot of folks might, maybe younger people who haven't entered the business world yet, if they're still in high school or college. What is C-suite before we dig deeper into your book?
So it's kind of simple because if you look at the top of the food chain in any organization, you have a CEO, you have a CFO, you have a CIO, you have, CMO. So these are all the guys on top of the organization that are leaders, and they all start with a C. Chief
Right.
Executive Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Technology Officer. So that's what the C stands for, C-suite. That's where, all the guys hang out, and they're all, all their titles start with a C.
Right. Guys and women at this point, because in
Yeah,
the
I do
last,
apologize. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, you're 100% correct. Yeah.
well, I remember when I was a kid that the women's movement, and it still is now, but you're talking about if you the timeline of when women were allowed to vote and had to fight for the right to vote and all types of things, and now you have women that are doing big things. I mean, at one point, 1984, Geraldine Ferraro was running for vice president, but it was a tough thing because Reagan was so popular. But now Kamala Harris has achieved that goal. And so there you go. So things happen in lifetimes that we don't know, we don't expect to happen. I want to go back to more about you and your background. Leadershipdisciples.com. Let me ask you this as I look into your bio, Tom. How did you choose that .com name? Because that's a very powerful name for a website, for your own personal website and your professional website. How did you come up with leadershipdisciples.com to go for your online presence?
Well, how did I use? Okay, leadership is something that's been with me all my life. I mean, if I look at when I was a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old kid, reflecting on it, I always found myself in leadership positions, whether it was on a sports team or other situations. And then, high school, again, leadership positions, college, leadership positions, student council, captain of tennis team. And then, got into business and always found myself in increasing responsibilities always. So leadership has always been there. But then why disciples? Well, I'm a Christian guy, right? And if you think about what did the disciples do, I mean, basically disciples carried the word out and acted the word out and spread the word of Christianity. And if we didn't have 12 really loyal disciples, and if we didn't have Jesus, then Christianity wouldn't exist today, right? It made it a movement. So disciples to me, rings really true to say, look, leadership is very important, but the fact is, as a country, as companies, we're not that good at it, right? If you look at
Right.
if you look at companies, they're a lot of them will have bad leaders. If you look at organizations, they have bad leaders. Look in government, we have a lot of bad leaders in government. Not just I'm not talking party lines. I mean, you can take people from either party and you say, well, these are really not exemplify leaders. So this leadership disciples to me says, look, leadership is extremely important, and we have to get it right, and we have to spread the word, and we have to live. I have to live, not we, but I have to live by example and lead by example of what leadership is all about. So that's where leadership disciples came from, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Here's a question for you. Veering off the path a little bit, I guess I fear for our country and maybe for our world that because of social media, the crosshairs that come with competing news organizations, you can have one story and one side's got a totally different slant than the other. And depending on which news show you're watching, you're going to be angry about something or love it. And so I think there's so much enforced divisiveness that's coming. We no longer have someone like Walter Cronkite that almost everybody trusts. What I fear is that people that might be great natural born leaders look at the landscape of the country and they see people almost not to use a biblical term in this way, but kind of getting crucified, for being public figures, whether it's Matt Damon saying something in an interview, or uh, former President Trump, President Biden, Obama, any of these people in power. Even Scarlett Johansson is trying to get the money that she feels is due to her for a movie deal, and people are saying, well, what do you want so much money for? You already got paid, and who knows how much work she put into this movie. And my question to those folks who criticize her is, it seems like she tried to reach out to Disney before this thing went further. It's so on and so forth. So my point is that to be a public figure at all, you seem to be putting yourself on the chopping block for public execution. What can you say to inspire a potential young person, a 15-year-old high school boy or girl who's looking at life and thinking they have leadership skills and maybe want to get involved in politics or social affairs? But they see this continuous chopping block of public figures, and maybe they think twice. They don't want to go through life being criticized and critiqued like that. Is there anything you can say to encourage folks?
Well, man, that's a loaded statement, a loaded question. I would have look two words of encouragement to them, and then I'll kind of elaborate a little bit on it. But look, number one, be yourself. Don't try to be something that society wants you to be. Don't try to be something that somebody else wants you to be. Be yourself. Know who you are, and stand firm in what you believe in and what your passion is about. The second is understand absolute truth. I think that's the biggest beef I have with society today is we no longer have absolute truth. If you looked at a society 100 years, 120 years ago, maybe 50 years ago, we had absolute truth. Today we have relative truth. What is true to me is not true to you. Um, we
Right.
different, we basically differ on the facts. Um, so as a society, the only way I can see this getting cured is everybody gets back to the absolute truth to say, look, black is black, white is white. Yeah, there's a shade of gray in between. Not everything is gray. So just because it makes you feel good and you believe it's true, it's not absolute truth. It's just a relative truth that you think is true, because that's what your belief system is, which is very different from another person's, and that's why it's a difficult discussion in today's society because nobody could agree on facts. In an absolute truth society, you can agree on the facts. You may differ on opinions on how to solve that, right? And then you have a healthy discussion, a healthy debate to say, okay, how do we solve that issue? But if everybody looks at everything totally different and there's no basis and no foundation of factual truth that everybody could agree on, then how do you solve anything?
It gets very complicated. I mean, I think of things such as COVID vaccines and should we wear masks? Should we get vaccinated or not? I have friends that didn't want to get vaccinated that they watch the news now and they're like, oh my gosh, all these hospital beds are filled up with people, and now they're getting their vaccine after months of not wanting to. But there's so many things in the news that are so divisive, and it's just a challenge, I think, for people to agree. And sometimes, Tom, I'll be honest with you, some topics are so complicated. I find myself wavering myself on things. Things that in the morning I might feel one way. By the afternoon, if I've seen an article or a YouTube video about it, I'm like, gee, I think I changed my mind on this. And I'll give you an example from my own point of view, and it's not to be political, but I'm watching the weightlifting of the Olympics last night, and they have female weightlifting, and one of the competitors is a transgender woman, and I'm mixed feelings because I got to think that although the science and the testosterone levels are telling us that it's fair for her to compete, I just don't know. I just don't know if I can buy into that she doesn't have some type of inherent bone structure that's in her system from when she was a man that's helping her with an advantage. And I'm thinking of the unknown Olympic athlete who was born a female, who didn't get that opportunity because this individual is taking that spot. And it's what's fair to one person may come at the expense of someone else in that scenario. And those are the type of situations that I wonder, how do we get to some finite truth if the truth for one and what's fair for one person is different than what's going to be fair for someone else at the exact same time? And how do we broach that? Huh?
Well, look, again, absolute truth. Stephen Covey said this many, many years ago while he was still alive. Stephen Covey said, "Look, we look at the world not as it is, or I'm sorry, we see the world not as it is, but as we are." Right? And what happens in today's society is people are no longer open-minded to truth, but they're looking for confirmation of their opinion. So they watch the news network that confirms what they think. They listen to people and read, articles about that confirms their opinions, and no longer people are open to differences of opinion and exchange of ideas. They're just looking to confirm that they're right in what they thought. And that's a really tough battle, and that's why I said you have to go back to absolute truth. Now, I may get I may get canceled after these comments, but look, um, I believe also because of my biblical faith that there's genetically a man and a woman. There's only two sexes in this world. One is a man and one is a woman. Um, and people genuinely believe that men can give birth to babies. It's like it's physically impossible, right? Women
Right.
were women are women and men are men, and we should celebrate them for their differences. Are women and men equal? Absolutely, but we should celebrate that they are different. They were created different. Now, whether you believe in evolution or whether you believe in creation, either way, through evolution or through creation, there's male and female species, right? Um, and that's an absolute truth. That's not a relative truth. But if you basically believe it's a relative truth, and you get into this gender debate of who's a man and who's a woman, and if your opinion is that you're a woman or a man, depending on what your perception is on how you feel about it. um, well, I've never been inside that body of a person who felt like a woman versus a man. I never been in the body of Caitlyn Jenner, who was a celebrated Olympic male athlete and then became a woman. But the fact is, even after she became a woman, she wouldn't be able to deliver a child in this world, right? Because she was originally a male. So that's a perception. That's an opinion of who I am as a human being. And look, I respect that opinion. But you can't change the definition and absolute truth of a man and a woman. Now, after this, probably I got
I,
kicked off on a lot of podcasts, but
no,
hey,
well, here's the thing. It's a complicated thing because I think people can be afraid to express an opinion that is deemed in today's society politically incorrect. I can just speak for myself that I think I've known five people that have gone under some type of change, and I would say that three of those people are seemingly happy with their choice. One person actually went back and forth, was born a man, became a woman, and went back. And that story is very tragic. I could get into that story, but it's their kind of private story. But the person actually had the operation to go from male to female, and then years later, through a turn of events, felt inclined to go back. And I'm just thinking, my gosh, what's going on with the body here? What damage? If I'm assuming there's some type of residual damage, this can't be good for your body to be messing with this stuff that much. I'm not a surgeon or a doctor, but if you're literally having two gender operations back and forth, I'm thinking there's something going on here. And I guess my feeling is that people have a right to do this surgery. It's their body. They have a right to do it. But I just wonder if they realize, not to say they, but the individual realizes life is tough no matter what sex you are, no matter what gender you are. Life is hard. We're a couple of Caucasian men in America, and it's not easy for us. Life is tough for everybody. So I don't know if the gender operation, not to be condescending and think, oh, it's going to change all your problems, but the problems are going to be there no matter what you do. So I just hope that people think about that. But I guess the other thing for me is like I was talking about this weightlifting example, I think about the female athletes, let's call women that are born women and they're competing. And it was very hard for women athletes to even get, was it Title IX, I believe, right? In the 70s that gave, or the 80s, that gave women the right to have all the sports available, women's soccer, women's
Yeah, yeah.
basketball, all the equality for women to have even these opportunities. And now they turn around and they have to compete with a whole other aspect of society, which are they're competing against women that were born as men. And despite what these testosterone levels may read, in my heart of hearts, I'm thinking there's got to be some advantage. The bone structure or the size of the shoulders or something. So, and I
Well,
do feel time. Go ahead.
well, I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but I'll put a different twist on it. And
Sure.
here's the twist that I will put on it. A lot of people, and I'm sure that was the issue with this case study that you brought with a friend of yours that went back and forth on being a male or female is a lot of people don't know who they are. And what do I mean by that? People become identifiable, for example, by their work. Or so okay, I they ask you, well, Tom, who are you? Are I'm an accountant, right? Or I'm a sales guy. Or they say, okay, you identify yourself and who you are is I'm a man, I'm a father versus I'm a mother or a woman. So now you're identifying and your self identity becomes about your sex, or your self identity becomes about your skin color. Right? I'm an Afro American. I'm an Oriental person. I'm a white person. So um, what I would encourage every person to do is understand who you are and identify yourself as something other than your skin color, something other than your sex, something other than what you do for a living. So you don't go on this crusade to say, look, I'm a gay man, or I'm a gay woman, or I'm a transgender individual, and that becomes your identity, and your whole life revolves around that definition. And you go on this crusade to say, look, that's I want you to march in my parade, I want you to raise my flag, because that is my identity. I got news for you, that is not your identity. That is part of who you are, but if that's all you see yourself as your identity, then you have a lot of soul searching to do. And that would be my advice to all these folks, is to say, okay, really find out who you are, and
Right.
why you were put on this earth. You know, t- um, I think Thomas, I forget who he was, but they said the two greatest things on earth is when you were born and when you find out why, right? And if you find out your why, whatever your why is, or why you're on this earth, what's your passion, what's your mission, and why you were put on this earth to create. Um, and if all that boils down to is your sex or your skin color or your job, you're shortchanging yourself. You were put on this earth for something much bigger than that.
Might have been Thomas Paine or Thomas Jefferson, or those are the
I
famous
don't know,
Thomases I think of.
one of those guys. So it's actually
And Tom
that quote is in
Kereszti.
my it's in my book. So I got to open the book and look for the quote, but it's I think it may have been Tom Sawyer. I think it
Tom
could have been
Sawyer.
Tom
Well,
Sawyer.
yeah, that was a character by Mark Twain, I believe, right? It was
Yeah,
Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn were the famous characters by Mark Twain, who at the time was one of the world's most respected writers and philosophers. Um,
yeah.
Tom,
Maybe it was Mark
once
Twain.
again,
Maybe it was Mark Twain.
it might have been Mark Twain. I want to read from your bio here. A great website, by the way, leadershipdisciples.com. On the About page. Tom is an industry influencer who adds value to individuals and helps companies reach their highest potential through life changing leadership principles. And down at your leadership philosophy, Tom is and I want to ask you about this in a second. Tom is a certified John Maxwell trainer, coach, and speaker. He is a member of the John Maxwell Group, a leadership training organization built to grow and equip others to do remarkable things and lead fulfilling lives. His servant leadership principles are time proven and based on biblical foundations. Man of God, leader of men. That vision statement has guided every life choice Tom has made since 1995. Tom is down to earth and able to strike a balance between business challenges and common sense solutions. His motivational, engaging style will leave you with practical and applicable solutions that you can put into practice. He will empower you and your company to succeed. Tom is an international speaker and executive coach who has spoken before crowds as large as 2,000 people. Now, the picture on the About page, is that with you and John Maxwell? Is that the two of you shaking hands?
Yes, that's one of the pictures of there. Absolutely, John is a great man. He's one of those guys that transformed many people's lives, thousands of lives, if not hundreds of thousands of lives all over the world. Very gifted speaker, very knowledgeable individual. So, and it's just been my pleasure to know him. And he is one of my mentors, directly and indirectly. So I'm just thankful for all the influence he has put on my life.
And what happened in 1995? Because the vision statement has guided every life choice you've made since 1995. What happened in that year, Tom?
So that's part of my personal journey. As I mentioned to you earlier, throughout observation, when I looked at my life, and now that I'm a little bit past 30 years old,
Sure.
and then some, right?
Right.
I look back at my life. I said, look, when I was 12, when I was 14, I got into these situations, and I always, when there was a gap in leadership, I always filled that gap. And in whatever situation you're in, sometimes there's a gap of leadership. And if you're a natural born leader, you're going to fill that gap immediately. And that was always my natural tendency. Whenever there was an opportunity to take a leadership role, I always did. I did that when I was 12, did that when I was 18, when it was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, etc. So leadership has always been there. And then through a series of events in 1995, I was baptized as an adult. So although I was, an active, participant in a Catholic church through my early, years, I would go to Sunday mass and everything else. But then what happens? We moved overseas. We became expats, so we were living in foreign countries, and then what happens is the Catholic Church is so widespread that their local mass is always in the local language. So you go to church and you have no idea you don't understand anything. So
Right.
through a series of events, then I was living in overseas, and this gentleman, Bob Spiden, had an American Baptist church overseas, and we attended that church. And through a series of events, I came as an adult to accept Christ and become baptized. So from that point on, that vision statement changed to man of God and leader of men. So that vision statement, what allows me to do is anytime there's a big question or a decision that I have to make, then I put it against that vision statement. And let's say it's a job opportunity. Let's say it's something in personal, life or something else. But you say, okay, um, does that exemplify leadership? If I take this job opportunity, if I take this client on, if I mentor this individual, is that a leadership opportunity? If so, then it passes test one, right? If not, then I don't do it. All right? If it's not a leadership opportunity, then I probably don't take it on. And then the second test is, does it honor God? And if it doesn't honor God, then I probably don't take it on either. I mean, I can tell you that from personal experience, I was sought out for many cigarette companies in Eastern Europe to run their companies, and I always said no. I just didn't feel consciously um, that it was a godly thing to ruin people's health by smoking cigarettes. So I just didn't take any of those jobs, no matter how well they paid, no matter how good of an opportunity was. I said no. So it's if you have a good, strong vision statement, and the nice thing about a strong vision statement is it's easily understood. And anytime you see a vision statement for companies that says, "Oh, we're going to be good corporate citizens and add shareholder value and blah 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 blah," nobody knows what the hell that means, so you can't really buy into it. So whatever
Right.
vision statement you have for yourself, make it simple, make it easily understood, so you understand it. People that surround you understand this, so they can buy into what you're trying to do. And that's whether for an individual or for a company, it's the same, you know. Yeah, just so that's my advice for everybody is just make sure you have a vision statement. And by the way, like I said, when I was 20, I wish somebody says, "Tom, have a vision statement for yourself." I was like, "What the hell? I don't know what that means." So,
Right.
it's something that I learned later in life.
I wanted. There was a term that we didn't quite nail earlier. Confirmation bias. I think that's when you watch a bunch of YouTube videos and everything that they say in the YouTube video agrees with what you already think, and then you go on Twitter or Facebook and everybody is kind of thumbs upping your shared post and so I think what happens is that we get so dedicated to our own opinion or the opinion that we're buying into that we don't want to be open-minded to someone else's opinion, which makes it so difficult to change the mind of a voter or change somebody's opinion on a social issue. But yeah, that's confirmation bias, what we were thinking of earlier. I wanted to ask you this question, Tom. Again, it might be a loaded question, but Christians in the media, for instance, I go to the movies a lot. I go to the movie theater a lot, and there's a movie coming out soon about Jim and Tammy Faye Baker. And hey, it's probably going to be a great movie. It's going to be very entertaining. It's going to have a lot of elements that are fun, I'm sure, and it's going to be a walk down nostalgia lane of pop culture from the 80s and 90s. But sometimes I wonder for people that maybe aren't born into Christian families, if they see stuff like this, they get this kind of caricature of who Christians are or who they're not, but who are using Christianity as a marketing tool for their own financial gain. And I think that people who are just going to church on Sunday and doing outreach groups and doing fundraisers for the community and raising money for other countries, and there's a lot of people who go to church who are just regular salt of the earth people of various ethnicities who come to church and find fellowship and do good things. And I feel that those type of Christians often get marginalized or not fully understood or appreciated because what gets the hot shot, so to speak, of the media wheel is the cartoony uh, celebrity Christians who, to me, are more celebrity than Christian. Any thoughts on that?
Well, look, there's an old saying, "Judge me what I do, not what I say." And look, in any profession, we hear all this bad publicity about police. Police brutality, police are out to murder you, or whatever. And look, in Minnesota, we had a case where we had a police guy that was bad. He was a bad apple. He killed George Floyd, and he deserves to go to jail. But you can't judge all police because one guy did something stupid and there's something bad. The same thing is for Christians, right? There's going to be bad apples in every group, in every part of society, whether you're police, whether you're in government, whether you're in church, and let's not lose sight of the fact that churches are big business.
Right.
There's the Catholic Church is the Catholic Church is one of the richest quote unquote corporations in the world, right? Um, so there's a lot of money in it, and money turns people to greed and makes them do stupid things like the bakers. They had they were one of the first televangelist people, and they just people were stupid and sent them money all the time, and they were a bad apple. the other guy, I forgot what his name is, Stewart. He's like, oh, he got caught in a whole hotel room with a prostitute and crack cocaine. So it was like, oh, I sinned, forgive me. So
Right.
there's a lot of bad Christians, but again, I think if you just apply that test to say, look, um, are they doing what they're saying, or are they not, living by example? And that's, I think, the acid test is. And one of the things that I apply for myself is, look, I don't go around telling people I'm a Christian. I don't go around. So people know that I'm a Christian when they ask me. And usually what happens if somebody doesn't know me, um, they'll observe me. They'll observe me and says, okay, what is different about Tom? I don't know what it is, but something is different about Tom. The way he treats people, the way he motivates people, the way he interacts with people, the way he conducts himself. There's something different about him. What the heck is different about Tom? And then either by association or by a direct discussion, they'll find out that the reason I am the way I am is because I'm a Christian guy, and I believe and I practice those habits. I believe and practice those habits to say I'm a servant leader. I serve. It's not about me. It's something much bigger than me. Um, so my actions, speak louder than words. I had to turn to this guy one time, and he said something to me. I said, "I'm sorry, I can't hear you," and he said it a little bit louder. And I said, "I'm sorry, I still can't hear you." And he said it one more time really loud, and I said, "Sam, your actions are so loud, I can't hear your words." People
Mm.
just, observe them, see what they do, and if it matches up with what they say, kudos, good for them. If it's opposite, then, and I don't care again if you're a Christian or if you're a police officer, if you're a government official, if you don't do what you say, um, people are not going to buy into you, and you're not genuine. You're not authentic. Um, I think that just goes generally for the human race.
What would you, once again, this hypothetical scenarios, but say some young person or even an older person is listening to our interview here on the Doomer Bloomer podcast. Uh, Guest Tom Kereszti, Mike Messier, guest host for William Summer, producer. If someone's listening to this show and they're not a Christian, but they're hearing some of the things you're saying and say, hey, I'd like to check this out, but maybe their family or their direct friend peer group is not Christian and they don't know what to do next. Do you have any suggestions for that hypothetical listener?
Look, there's two things they can do. I mean, there, I'm sure there's a local church they can plug into, and most churches, the doors are open. You can walk in there and kind of just talk to somebody and see, you know if they have an open ear, and see what's on your heart, and share it with them. The other one is, the best manuscript for mankind. It's called the Bible. Get yourself a version. The New International Version or the New Reader's Version is probably the easiest ones to read. So definitely don't get the King James Version, because then that's impossible to read. But pick up a book and start reading.
Right. Sure.
It's the best manuscript, and I would say, look, just to get started, there's two books within the Bible which I would highly recommend. One is the Proverbs, and the other one is Ecclesiastics. Proverbs is 30 paragraphs, I would say, or 30 chapters in the book of Proverbs, and it's just a lot of common sense advice. Whether it's about life, about business, about relationships, just kind of blow through. Read one chapter a day. That's a month, and it's just whether you're a Christian or you're not a Christian, it's just good advice. Read it, listen to it, and put it into works. And Ecclesiastic is more about, I would say, what is the meaning of life. So if you read that, you get some good tips of maybe why you were put on this earth. What is the meaning of life? Maybe what's the meaning of life for you? So those are just two great, you know, uh, areas in the Bible focus on, just to kind of start reading and get yourself oriented and quote unquote self teach yourself if you have nobody else to talk to.
There's also a lot of churches that have seminars or speeches online, so you can find that easily enough. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, and I've noticed in going to different churches over the years that there's been kind of a movement for more, I guess you'd say, contemporary music or more of an upbeat feeling, less rigid, I guess I would say, in some churches. So I think sometimes when people think of going to church, they think of this something from the 1950s or something like that, where it's very structured and ritualistic, and someone's browbeating you for 45 minutes. But there's plenty of churches out there that have a more contemporary, upbeat, acoustic guitars and so forth. And so if people are interested, I think maybe getting over some of those thoughts that they might have of what to expect.
Well, you're 100% right. You know, in fact, if you look at any geographical area, you'll find, what we call a mega church, which is a larger congregation, maybe 1, 2, 3,000, 10,000. And what churches do is they're very good at entertaining people. It has a high entertainment value, and Americans, we love being entertained. We spend billions of dollars on watching movies, sports entertainment, which is another entertainment. So we love being entertained, and churches have adapted that business model. They have a Sunday service, which is very entertaining, right? That Sunday service will have a quote unquote, a worship group, which may be rock and roll music. It may be R&B music. There's church rap. There's all kinds of music styles that would appeal to you if you walked into that church. And then usually there's an entertaining pastor who's very charismatic, and they have guest speakers. Especially during holiday seasons, they put on small production acts, like little theater skits, to celebrate, certain seasons of the year. So churches are very entertaining. And, if you're a marketing person, you understand the funnel theory, right? So, the funnel theory is you get all these, leads, or, you call it lead generation. So you got all these leads in the top of the funnel, and then you goes to your funnel and you start communicating a little bit more to them. And then, finally you end up with a client. But it's called the marketing funnel, and churches use that marketing funnel. So when you come in on Sunday, whether you believe it or not believer, you're like, hey man, this is great entertainment. I love it. And then
Right.
you stick around, you come back, and then you get to know a few people, and they get to talk to you, and you go through that funnel, philosophy until you actually then get to the point where quote unquote you become accustomed, because you actually give yourself to Jesus Christ, to become baptized, and you accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. So that's kind of the funnel effect. So yeah, there's I can guarantee you that if you find one of these quote unquote mega churches, and you go there on a Sunday, at minimum you'll be entertained and you'll want to come back. There's a great church in Florida, not around you, but in around Palm Beach. It's called Christ Fellowship. I think they have. They have a lot of campuses now. They've grown a lot over the last 20 years. So they're, not only they're Palm Beach, but they're, I think, all the way down to Miami, and, they go up Jupiter and pass north of that as well. So, yeah, if you're in Florida, plug into Christ Fellowship. I guarantee you will be entertained. And if you stick around long enough and you have an open heart, you may even get saved.
When we talk about the services on your leadershipdisciples.com/services, really well laid out here. Workshops, leadership development. You talk about the 4 aspects of leadership development that you concentrate on: discovery, your values and organizational culture, direction, vision and strategy, growth, pillars of growth and obstacles, people, building and developing teams. Once again, if you're interested in more, go to leadershipdisciples.com /services. Executive coaching. which is it's a 20. You get a 20-minute complimentary assessment to make sure we're a good match. That's always a good idea. To kind of before you start charging people or before you lock in to a long-term thing, just see if it's a good match. And so then if you go forward with that, if you sign up for it, you'll meet for 90 minutes, 2 times a month, in person, via web or phone. Identify and leverage your strength zone. All types of good things with executive coaching, mastermind groups. I've heard of that term before. I think it might have been a Napoleon Hill thing that I read about, the mastermind study group. Keynote speaking, if you want to bring Tom into your organization, or into, do you do speeches, public speaking in any type of organization, Tom? Are there specialties for you?
Well, look, it's best to speak about what you know, right? So if the topic that I preach, whether it's in my C-suite book, which is the 4 Keys to Leadership Success, and a lot of that is what you just described also on the website. If those topics are relevant to your organization and they ring a bell with you, then absolutely, I would love to come in and speak in your organization. If you want me to come in and talk about something that I'm not really familiar with, it may be relevant to your organization, but I'm not probably the best expert to do it, then yeah, I'm probably not your best choice. But if you're struggling or you think corporate culture is important to you, absolutely, I would love to come and talk to you about corporate culture. If vision and values are important to you, I would absolutely love to talk to you about that. If a growth strategy is important to you, yeah, and if a good functioning team is important to you, yeah, absolutely. So I can kind of talk about all those things. I can talk about one of those things, and usually the best way to do that is again just a complimentary consultation. Say, okay, what is your organization challenged with? What are you struggling with? What are the gaps that you need to fix? And then we kind of cater my message to be relevant to your organization. So when people are sitting in the audience, they say, okay, well, I get it. That's something that we're struggling with. I get it. That's something that makes sense to me. So I try to listen to the needs of a customer. And again, if I'm going to add value to you, and if I'm going to be a servant leader, it's not about me. It's about you.
Right.
It's about your organization. So, how do I serve your organization? How do I add value to your organization? And once I understand that, then I can deliver something that's meaningful and impactful for your organization.
Tom, let me, as we wrap up here, is there anything that I failed to ask you that maybe you had on the tip of your tongue that you want to say to anyone that's listening? Go right ahead, please.
Yeah. I Whenever somebody asks me that, and if we haven't touched base on it, the answer I usually use is this one. Um, Imagine you have 3 circles. It's called a Venn diagram, and then the 3 circles intersect and they overlap. And in each one of those circles, ask yourself a question. So the first question is, who am I? The second question is in the second circle, what am I passionate about? And the third question in the third circle is what am I good at? So for me, as an example, right, who am I? I mentioned to you that I'm a servant leader. What am I passionate about? I mentioned to you that I love adding value to people. I love people, and I love making people better. I love making organizations better. And then what am I good at? I'm pretty good at mentoring, and I'm pretty good at leading. So the beauty of those 3 circles and answering those 3 circles is I can take that to any part of my life. I can take it to work, a sports team, family. I can mentor my kids or I can mentor my employees. I can serve my family. I can serve my company. I can add value to my customers and my suppliers. So that formula works for me anywhere in my life, and I don't become schizophrenic to say I wear one hat at work and one hat in personal life or one hat, whatever situation I'm in. So I'm consistent no matter what I am. Now, if you know the answers, and you may not know the answers to these questions, I didn't know it right offhand. I didn't even know even to ask those questions until later in life, and now I have the answers. Uh, where those 3 circles intersect, where you should be, that's your sweet spot. That's where you should be living your life. So I know, for example, a lot of people doing a job that they don't like. They do it for the paycheck. They're not passionate about it. They just show up 9 to 5 and punch the clock. I know people that think they're good at things, but they're actually not that good at it. Nobody kind of told them, but they think they're good at it. But if you answer those three questions honestly and you live your life where those three circles intersect, you will be successful. Um, a caveat to that is if you can actually find a market to pay for that, you will be very rich.
Hmm. There you go. Tom, how can people find you? We mentioned several times leadershipdisciples.com, which at the top of the webpage, they even have your phone number, your email address, several social media links, but leadershipdisciples.com. Is there, looks like you have a YouTube page. Is there anything else you want us to know about for online presence before we wrap here, Tom?
No, you've. By the way, thank you so much because usually podcast I have to force to say something about the book, but I kudos to you, man. I tip my cap to you. You did a lot of background checks on me, and you read a lot of stuff from my website and from the book. So thank you so much for making that raising that awareness for this listening group. Look, the easiest thing is I've been blessed and cursed with a last name.
Right.
It's a very unique last name, Kereszti. I mean, if you Google Kereszti, you'll have me and my sister. My sister's an MD up in Boston, and it's me. I mean, those are the two people you'll find. So just look for Kereszti, and you'll find my LinkedIn, my Facebook, my book on Amazon. It's easy to find me. My website, if you want to reach out to me, absolutely. And I look forward to hearing everybody from everybody on this the webcast. And if you just got one golden nugget or maybe two golden nuggets from our conversation here, then it's been a blessing to me, and I hope it's been a blessing to you.
I've had a great time talking to you, Tom, and I share with you the whole Amazon publishing because I've got my own book on there, a novel, A Distance from Avalon, When the Dying and the Dead Reunite, Gothic horror that I wrote. So it's great that we have these tools. I know you said that Amazon's a little controversial for some folks, Tom, but for me, it's very empowering to have a tool like Amazon where you can publish your own book and not go through the hoops and ladders and send out a bunch of query letters to different publishing companies. So, have you had a good run with Amazon? You think is that something you like, or is that something that you're still the jury's out on that for you?
Well, Amazon is one distribution channel. HarperCollins is the one that published my book, and I kind of got my first. The book is relatively recent. I launched it, I think, November. Came out November, December 2020. So it's not that long. It's out there. It's only about 6, 7 months. And I said, well, look for a first time published author. How am I doing in sales? They said, well, you sold more in the first quarter than most people sell in a year. So I said, that's good
That's
news.
gotta feel
I don't
good.
know. I don't know if that's because of Amazon. I don't know if it's because the podcast. I'm sure all that stuff has to do with it. I try to be on several podcasts each week, so I'm sure it's a combination of many things. But I'm blessed, and yeah.
And what kind of doctor is your sister up in Boston? I'm just curious because I just moved from New England. So what type of work is she in as far as medical?
She's OBGYN.
Yeah, it's important stuff.
She actually
Very
delivered my
important.
middle daughter. My middle daughter's Nicole, and my sister delivered my middle daughter. So that was a family event.
Well, you I don't know if you can mention it. You have you said you have three kids, right? Is it three or four?
Three,
Three daughters?
all
Yeah.
girls. Yeah.
And there and what's not to prolong the question too much, but how you're in San Diego, California. I hate to bring up the topic because but it's kind of a downer. But how has San Diego been doing now with the worldwide situation we're in? Are people starting to get out and about, or are people still staying home? Is it a mixture? Where does San Diego stand on that radar, Tom?
I think it's pretty open. I think for a while, all of the United States, including San Diego, was kind of shut down, and people were home. They were kind of scared to go out, and then it started to loosen up. But right now, it's wide open. Restaurants are open, ball games are open. People are going to see the Padres. So I would say there's really little to no restrictions in San Diego as we speak.
Okay, well, very good. Well, Tom Kereszti, it has been a pleasure to have you here on the Doomer Bloomer podcast. I've been your guest host, Mike Messier, filling in for my buddy, William Summer. And Tom, you have a great week. It's only Tuesday, so we got the whole week to fill up, right?
Absolutely. Mike, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun speaking with you.
Thanks, Tom. Have a great day.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. This has been Mike Messier for the Doomer Bloomer podcast. Thank you very much. And subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. We'll try to get the visual rendition of this up there as well. Thanks to our guest, Tom Kereszti, and we'll see you next time.
Hi there, this is Will here with the Doomer Bloomer podcast. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode with Tom Kereszti. I know I did. Check out www.leadershipdisciples.com and check out Tom Kereszti's new book on Amazon. Link in the description. Here at the Doomer Bloomer podcast, we're always talking about becoming better versions of ourselves, specifically the 10 pillars and the hero's journey. So our lives are never over. They're always in a state of progress. And if you are learning or starting to learn more about Christian values and specifically the Beatitudes and finding your way through Jesus Christ, I would also recommend checking out the Daily Taoist podcast and the Twitter handle of the same name. That is a more spiritual podcast related to the Tao Te Ching and Christianity. I got a lot out of the episode this week. I sure hope everyone else listening did as well. I think Mike is doing a fantastic job. Subscribe to him at Mike Messier on YouTube. And if you're out there surfing the net, we can be found at www.thedoomerbbloomerpodcast.com/support. I encourage you to become a member and join our Discord group. There's great resources there and a community of people becoming doomers to bloomers. Have yourself a great and prosperous day wherever you are in the world. Namaste from Will S. Cheers.